The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
All right, it's the week where the Canucks acquire Jake Guentzel. Maybe.
Oh,
hey, who knows if it's going to happen or not. But on this episode of Locked On Canucks, we'll tell you a few players who could be of interest to your Vancouver Canucks. Stick around if you're interested in us. Locked On Canucks, baby.
Yo, these guys better not give up Niels Höglander, man. I'm getting a Niels Höglander jersey, bro, tomorrow. Straight up. Anyways, let's do this.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and also a Canucks writer for Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into today's trade target special, we got to thank you for tuning into Locked On Canucks, because it is your team, your Canucks every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and if you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe or follow us for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. I also got to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Speaking of getting started, let's get started, Kyle, talking about potential trade targets for your Vancouver Canucks, whether it makes sense to trade the farm to get one of the big fish on the table. And we're talking about big fish. We're talking about Jake Guentzel. Unless there's another big fish out there. But we're gonna get into it all. We're going to talk about how these trades could affect the Canucks cap situation heading into next year, and give you a brief picture of what the Canucks cap picture looks like. We do have more clarity now that they have signed Elias Pettersson. Thank God for that. And if you want to hear our takes on that, we talked about it on the weekend, okay? But enough about that. Let's get into the trade target special. Before we get into it, let me introduce my co-host, someone who doesn't want the Canucks to make any moves. How boring. Kyle Bowen, what's going on, brother?
It's not boring, dude. Come on, man. Why? Come on, man. All right? I'm just saying I trust the guys, okay? And if the Canucks are going to – I think I'm saying I don't want them to make any moves because, A, I don't see them making any more big moves. I don't think they have the capital for it. I don't know if you want to be a good team for 1 year and then mortgage all the future. You know what I'm saying? That sounds really, 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 really confusing to me. I remember what happened to the Ottawa Senators. Or remember – you know what I'm saying? Like, it just – no, remember what happened to San Jose when they traded for Carlson? And how F they got, you know, like who did Ottawa get in that draft where they had like 2 top 10 picks, 2 top 5 picks or whatever. Anyways, I don't want to do it. Okay, the Canucks have been good for 1 year. Let's be patient. I'm not saying don't necessarily go full throttle towards the cup, and I'm only not saying that because I feel as if we've already done that. Look at the trades we've made. That's like big baller moves, big balls moves. Okay, the nuts on this team to do what they've already done via the trade market is. For me, it's done reaching their quota. And if they have to fix their bottom 6 or, fix that fourth line and whatnot, I for one, am on the boat of them, having a private meeting with Sam Lafferty and just telling him to step it up versus them trading another 3rd or 4th round pick to just fix that issue, which would still be a question mark because the player that they would get in returns would still have work to do. It's not going to be a surefire bet. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs, all over the place to start the episode. Trade deadline special. Beggsy's got a huge list, right? Speaking of a list, I got a list of names who may win tickets to a Canuck game, man. March the 25th, we're giving away 2 tickets. All you have to do is sign up to the Discord and subscribe to the channel. The link to the Discord is in the bio. The Discord. We got 20 members in 1 week, man. And I feel as if I know what the purpose is for the Discord, and that's ironically the chemistry, okay, the discourse from one another, so that when we throw live parties, it's not going to be awkward, okay, for real. You got what I'm saying? At least we can practice talking to the people on the daily. Anyways, Beggsy, talk about the trade list you have in front of you. I only have one name, one player that I want. Maybe we'll talk about him towards the end of the situation. I'm excited to see what you got to say.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to start with the most obvious candidate, and it's Jake Guentzel. And I don't want to talk about it too much because we've talked about it ad nauseum. But it's right now, it's in the news again that the Canucks are heavily interested in Guentzel. Apparently, there are 6 serious suitors for him, including the Vegas Golden Knights, who again, division rivals of the Canucks. And oh yeah, they got oodles of cap space now with Mark Stone, reportedly not returning for the rest of the regular season. The Edmonton Oilers have also been rumored to be interested in Guentzel, although they have more work to make the cap gymnastics work, even more so than the Canucks. But we talked about it again on this program. I think the package for Guentzel, if they're going to do it, is 2025 first, Lekkerimaki and Mikheyev. I think it starts there, and I'm torn on this. I was very much like, yeah, you got to do it. Let's go all in. Let's go on for the cup. I mean, ironically, Kyle's cover bus guy doesn't want this team making trades. I'm more so.
Dude, they've already made trades, bro. They've already made trades, bro. They've made two of the biggest trades this season, man. Like, what is this, bro? I can't. We've reached our quota. If they do it for Guentzel and they have to give up that much, obviously I'm all in. I'm going to support it. You're forced to do so, but I am kind of I am wary of the fact that, again, the Canucks have been good for 1 year. They've been good for 1 year. You know what I'm saying? And I think I'm trying to make sense of, again, what Ottawa did a couple years ago. I know they kind of won it when they traded Karlsson to San Jose and they acquired extra picks, and San Jose kind of sucked when they had Karlsson, and boom, bam, next thing you know, they got a top 5 pick, a top 10 pick. Remember when they went after Duchesne and what happened to them the next year? Exactly, bro. With Colorado? Exactly. I think because again, if you're talking about the first round pick, that's next year's first round pick, right? That's 2025. I'm way more comfortable trading that first round pick next year.
I mean, I see your logic, right? And I think there's a lot of scar tissue in this market of just, this team's been bad for a long time. We've seen teams go all in and then suck the next year. I just don't think that's going to be the case with these Vancouver Canucks.
Okay.
The only reason I see that, and this could happen to any team, is injury, right? Hughes, Miller, the star players have been healthy this entire season, right? You've seen what injuries can do to a team like New Jersey, although obviously goaltending's played a big part in it. But as long as injuries don't strike the Canucks and the core is intact, I don't see this team just suddenly bottoming out next year. I think they've figured it out under Tocchet. I think they have the right system in place. I think they have an amazing core in place. I'm kind of for it. The all in move. So again, Guentzel for a 2025 first, Lekkerimaki and Mikheyev to make the cap space work. I think that's the realistic offer. Now, Lekkerimaki is scoring at a rate that guys like Marcus Naslin, Elias Pettersson did over in the SHL. So that's starting to give me more of a pause, right? Do you really trade this guy for Guentzel? But hey, if it's about winning Stanley Cup, it's hard not to argue that Guentzel wouldn't make the team a Stanley Cup contender now. Let's move to the defense because
wait. I want to ask you something.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna get everyone to answer this in the comments right now. Okay, whether you're in the live chat or you want to slide in our DMs or talk about it in the Discord or in the comments below. Would you rather give up Lekkerimaki or Nils Höglander? Because I feel as if right now those two are in similar value. Because I truly do believe that Nils Höglander is kind of sort of on his way to become Jake Guentzel-esque, like put up that amount of points, be that hard to play against, in theory, get a lot better year in and year out. And then you have Lekkerimaki, who's getting a lot better, took a huge stride this year, one of the best players or young players in Sweden overseas. Out of those two, because I think if Dubas is trading Guentzel to Vancouver, he's either asking for that first round pick next year, but it's either Lekkerimaki or Höglander. Who would you rather give up? This is big, Begsy. I've been waiting for this one.
I'd probably rather give up Höglander. And I wouldn't have said that about a month ago. But you look at Lekkerimaki, like there just aren't a lot of guys who score at the rate that he does in the SHL.
There's not a lot of guys that score at the rate at even strength like Nils Höglander in the NHL.
Right, but I think with Höglander too, it feels weird to criticize Höglander because he's been so rock solid for the Canucks this season, but Höglander looks like a really good complementary middle six piece, whereas I think Lekkerimaki has top line potential.
Okay.
I think that's the big difference between the two is just the potential that Lekkerimaki has. Honestly, I bet you the answer would differ depending on which NHL general manager you asked. So yeah, the Guentzel trade, I think it's a fascinating topic of conversation. It sounds like the Canucks are seriously interested. I don't think LV wants to give up either of those guys though. So I'm curious how, and Willander too. I think Willander is off the table just based on how shallow the team's defensive depth pool is. So if Lekkerimaki and Willander are off the table, it's probably got to be Höglander, right? You got to give up someone to get someone that good now.
Exactly.
Even if the Canucks were to go all in for Guentzel, the thing that still concerns me about this team is more so the defense. And I know there's all this talk about, oh, you need another piece for the top 6, and that would help. But I look at this defense, and Houston Roanoke, obviously they've been on a bit of a slide recently, but they're still a really solid 1-2 defenseman.
Yeah.
1-2 punch as a top 2 defenseman. But the rest of the depth chart gives me some concern. Like Ian Cole, Tyler Myers, Zadorov. Zadorov's played better of late, which is great. But the Canucks don't really have like that true number 3 defenseman, let's say. I think that's probably the biggest missing piece right now. And that makes me think of guys like, Sean Walker and Alexander Carrier. Now that Chris Tanov's off the market, those are 2 guys I look at who play the right side, can kill penalties, are pretty reliable defensively, and both have cap hits under $3 million. Those are guys who I could see being fit for the Vancouver Canucks, who are going to cost something, but aren't going to be as prohibitive as maybe acquiring a guy like Jake Guentzel.
Okay. Well, you know where I've been on that. I think that I have a lot more faith in a guy like Carson Soucy. I think he's better than we think he is. I think he's proven that. This all being said, I kind of do have to slow down, and I think I did slow down a bit after yesterday. I know they played pretty well against an AHL team in the Ducks, but it's scary to see this much of a decline in Ian Cole's game. Like, it's been a while, and I think Ian Cole didn't play a good game again yesterday, and that was a chance for him to, I don't know, take more of a stride, be more mistake-free, All in all, I do kind of agree with you that that's, I wouldn't say like a major issue, but a place where I much rather them target assist on rather than their forward group. I just don't know much of the market. So out of those 2 players that you just mentioned, who's more likely to be on Vancouver's radar, and who would you rather have? Is Beggsy there? I think he's there. Okay. Do the Canucks have to replace this theory or notion that Ian Cole is their 3rd best defenseman? Beggsy, you back?
Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
Little glitch in the old operating system there. I think Zadorov's kind of stepped up into that Ian Cole spot recently. To be honest with you, I think Zadorov's been a lot sharper. That being said, Zadorov and Myers, they do play a more mistake-prone brand of hockey than Ian Cole. So, that being said, with Soucy coming back as well at some point, I'm curious to see what he looks like. I think he's been good, but he's only played 20-something games.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
He's really been a bottom-pairing defenseman throughout his whole NHL career. He has never played top 4 minutes. Now, all of a sudden, he's going to be like your number 3 defenseman going to a Stanley Cup run. Like, I'm not convinced on that. So, but I do think someone to shore up the right side is probably, the biggest area of need for the Vancouver Canucks. Now, Rutherford, even back in January, said, top 6 guys is our biggest need. They got that guy in Lindholm. But on defense, you still look at that and say, yeah, I think they could use another body there, especially if it could be a Stanley Cup contending team.
Yeah. So, again, out of those 2 names you mentioned, who would you much rather have?
I've been on the Sean Walker bandwagon, for about the second half of the season here. Alexander Carrier, though, is a guy that's popped up in trade talks. Now, Alexander Carrier and Dante Fabro are 2 guys in Nashville who are right shot defensemen who, really are potentially expendable depending on what the Predators do. The Predators won 8 games in a row. There's a chance that they might not want to get rid of anybody, right? But if they do decide to trade a right shot defenseman, I do like Alexander Carrier. I think he is probably more likely to be traded based on reports than Dante Fabro. It sounds like they're trying to make things work with Dante Fabro. Yeah. But yeah, he's a guy interesting. Again, he's a bit undersized, which I don't know if Canucks management loves that. They've tended to like their big boys, but now that they got Soucy, Myers, Zadorov, Cole, maybe they feel okay about adding a small defenseman. Carrier, I think, plays bigger than he is. But yeah, Sean Walker would be my preferred target for sure. But again, 2 teams in Philly and Nashville who might just keep their guys and go for the playoffs.
And I heard that they're asking a lot for Walker. And I know JS just commented that as well, but I'm pretty sure I've heard everyone in the hockey world talk about that. And if it's a first-round pick, again, the Canucks don't have a first-round pick this year. That's in 2025, and you're not moving that pick for Sean Walker. Like, the Canucks can't move a first-round pick and then look back at what they've done in 12 months and be like, oh, we've given up, 3 first-round picks in 12 months, whatever the math is, blah, 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 and, not have, a legitimate play driver, you look at that type of package and what you could get in something like an offer sheet, you're getting a legitimate superstar player. So the Canucks are in no way, shape, or form in a position to trade a first-round pick for Sean Walker. It doesn't make sense. Again, the Canucks have been good for 40 days. Well, longer than that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just starting right now. Look at the stat, though, okay? This comes from Mike, okay? The Canucks are 16-3-2. Sorry, 16-3-2 with Carson Soucy in their lineup. Bro, I hate to say this because it's going to put a lot of pressure on the guy. But you know who he reminds me of? The way he skates, the way he makes a good first pass? Chris Tanev. He does. He does.
Yeah, a bigger, more physical Chris Tanev. And he's got a better shot than Chris Tanev, too. Soucy can actually shoot the puck. Look, I think there's a good argument. We should argue more, Kyle, but not to side with you. I think it's an argument that the Canucks should probably just make smaller moves, right? They've made their big move.
Mm-hmm.
They're still a pretty good team. And this, again, is the opening of their window. There's no Elias Pettersson might leave Saga hanging over this team. This team should be good for the next few seasons. So, yeah, you're right. There's an argument to be made that maybe they don't trade all their chips and they just kind of go in with more or less the team they have. I think Guentzel would be probably the big move they make. I honestly, as much as I like Sean Walker, right, if it is a first-round pick, that's not a trade you want to make for a guy like Sean Walker. So on the other side, let's touch on some of the smaller names on the list, moves that are, potentially more likely for the Vancouver Canucks that maybe won't cost a first-round pick to pull off. Before we get to that, we got to shout out FanDuel, baby. All right. Now it's an NHL show, but FanDuel, they also love the NBA. And they want me to tell you that you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
One love to FanDuel. Okay, we back on this conversation about your Vancouver Canucks. Locked on Canucks. My name is Kyle Bowen. That right there is Trevor Beggs. One love to the Don't Dose Art Lab for doing the most for the West Coast and supplying the facility to make this show possible, man. Again, they are definitely the home of the West Coast bias, okay? Straight up. Speaking of the West Coast bias, man, I think a lot of people have this bias towards Niels Höglander, and rightfully so. Look at Frosty, okay? Doesn't want Höglander to go anywhere. And he's also saying that Höglander's contract is a total steal for the Canucks, okay? $1.1 million for this type of guy. He's going to be great again next year. Don't want to see the Canucks giving him up. That being said, I don't know if the Canucks have the assets to really be big players during this deadline. They've already done it, okay? Look at this guy, Tyler M. Okay, I'm not gonna call this guy out, but look at what he's doing here, okay? Podkolzin a first, a second, and Jet Wu for Guentzel. That's not gonna push the needle, okay? I'm sorry. I don't think Podkolzin is doing much for his case unless he, has 10 goals this week. Unless he gets 10 goals tomorrow against LA Kings, then he can be like the main chip in a Guentzel trade. And then he has Ilya Mikheyev, Akito Hirose, Atu Ratu, and a third for Toffoli. Man, oh man, again, the prospect pool for the Vancouver Canucks, I know it's risen, but I think that's off of just Lekaramaki and Willander. Not off the depth. Straight up. It's just the truth.
I think you're right, Kyle. Although there's an argument to be made that guys like RC Baines, right, free agent signings have boosted the pool. Archer Silovs, right, may not having the best season, and he let in one of the worst goals you'll see in a long time the other night in the AHL. But overall, I mean, over the past 12 months, the guy was a world championship medal winning goalie for Latvia. So yeah, it's mainly the top guys, but there have been other players too. Now, Kyle, maybe I'll ask you this before I get to some of the rest of the names on my list. What assets on the Canucks are you comfortable giving up, if any, at this deadline?
4th and 5th round picks, 6th round picks, straight up. No, straight up, man. I'm just not comfortable, man. We've done the most. If we were like, what's a good team? If we were Carolina, if we were like had that much playoff experience in the back end, and then we go into this season, then I'd be more comfortable being like, you know what, we're gonna trade our best prospects and we're gonna trade 2 first-round picks this year. Straight up. To get it all done. I just think the Canucks they can get quote unquote lucky this year, go on a magical run, do all their things, and do so without any prior playoff experience. But because we don't have that, I'm just not in a position to go ultra all in. Again, I look at a team like the LA Clippers in the NBA, okay? I know they traded like 10 first-round picks, you know what I'm saying? And they just started getting things together this year. So I'm just, again, I'm kind of scared of that. Anyways, though, before you get to more of your list, I want to bring up the guy I want to bring up, okay? So if the Canucks have like a 5th-round pick to give, a 4th-round pick to give, a 3rd-round pick again to give, maybe it's a 3rd-round pick because I think this player type's value has kind of gone up over the last couple of weeks, and that's because of guys like Rempe. Is that his guy, the Rangers guy, the enforcer from the Rangers? Is a guy like Liam O'Brien from the Arizona Coyotes. And I know we got to see a lot of Liam O'Brien in that one game against the Coyotes earlier in the season. He was just all over the place in the first period against the Vancouver Canucks. And I think if the Canucks are looking to improve their 4th line, remember, they can just take Sam Lafferty out for a dinner and just, tell him to step up. Because I think at Sam Lafferty's best, when he's on his game, like, are you going to get a guy better than that via trade to fill out your 4th line? I don't know. But if you are going to trade an asset for a 4th liner, you might as well get a guy who brings something different to the table. And Liam O'Brien, he's a piece of beep. You know what I'm saying? He's one of those guys. He's an agitator. And I think he did some impressing in that game where he was being a piece of beep against the Canucks in front of Rick Tocchet and company.
Yeah, and the guy likes to drop the gloves, bring that element of toughness into the bottom 6. And like I said, Kyle, probably shouldn't cost a lot to acquire as well. So I don't mind Liam O'Brien as a target. Again, not a needle mover by any means, but a guy who could bring some toughness to your lineup now. Another guy the Canucks have been another guy the Canucks have been rumored to go after as well have been Jordan Greenway. So that's kind of another guy on my trade target list where you look at Greenway's stats, and Buffalo gave up some assets to get him. He hasn't been great, although he's played better recently. But Jordan Greenway is 6'6". He hits. He definitely, like Liam O'Brien, brings an element to the lineup that the Canucks could they could use, right? So now Jordan Greenway's making $3 million. Liam O'Brien's making league minimum, right? So Liam O'Brien theoretically easier to acquire. But again, I think both those guys probably are on the Canucks' radar because I think this team could use a bit of toughness, especially if this Dakota Joshua injury lingers on.
No, honestly, like the Canucks bottom 6 with Dakota Joshua and Jordan Greenway would be more intimidating. I just feel as if the cost, the cap hit is a little different with a guy like Greenway. And I don't know if he's proven enough to be that guy that the Canucks target to, again, flip the narrative on their 4th line. I think it's just going to cost too much, and I would much rather have Liam O'Brien. Okay, I think this guy's a piece of POS, but I think he just brings a lot to the table. I think he's an agitator. The Canucks don't really have a lot of agitators, and I think he would be a fan favorite too. He'd get the crowd going in playoff games, okay, for real. Trevor, are you back? Your internet, man. Dollar store internet, man. Trade deadline week. Can we just go to the big fish, okay? Can we go to the big fish here? He's on the thumbnail, okay? Pavel Buchnevich. I don't know why the Blues would necessarily want to trade him this year because he's still a really good player. I think his cap hit is more than reasonable. I know he has 1 more year left on the deal. Maybe that's something that raises the value to a whole lot of the other level, and that's, again, a reason why they might trade him. But all in all, if I'm the Blues, I'm keeping him. That being said, I know for sure, based on player style, playing style, I've seen him play a lot of games. He would look so good with Elias Pettersson. So good. So good.
Yeah.
As a finisher with Hoagland on the right side, just retrieving pucks, that would be a beautiful combination.
Yeah, I'm curious what direction the Blues want to go because, if they don't see themselves competing for a long time, then it would make sense to trade Buchnevich, especially now. He's going to have more value with another year left on his contract. But on the flip side, I think Buchnevich might cost more to acquire than Jake Guentzel, to be honest. I think there was a report out there that St. Louis was looking for like astronomically high prices, like 2 first-round picks. So I don't know if they really want to give up Buchnevich, to be honest. I think they're maybe floating the name out there to hope they get some extremely big package in return. But I agree. I love Buchnevich. I think he'd be a fantastic fit on Pettersson's wing. A top line of Buchnevich, Pettersson, and Hoaglander come playoff time. Like, let's go, man. Let's go. Are you serious? Are you serious, man?
Nah,
that would be sick. So
that'd be sexy.
Yeah, he is one of the big fish out there. Another guy with the big term that I do like is Adam Henrique. I just think he brings a lot to the table in terms of penalty killing, power play, the ability to play first line or fourth line. again, comes with a bit of a heavier cap hit, but he is a UFA at the end of the season. So
Yeah.
he's making $5.825 million right
I
now.
don't know, man.
But
I don't
Henrik,
know
I feel
about
bad
that.
for.
I don't really want Adam Henrique that much, man. I don't really know if he's like the type of guy that I'm going out of my way to even trade more assets for. I feel as if the Canucks hold on to those assets, make a few more phone calls, and see if they can land a bigger fish, to be honest. Just personally speaking, okay? Also, I think if you acquire Adam Henrique and give up, I think there's going to be some teams calling for him and, thus making the value go up. I think if you bring a guy like that to the table, are you watering down / not giving enough opportunity to that third line, Bluger, Joshua, Garland? Like, that's the X factor. We have that. We have that, man. That's the line that's going to do a lot for us in the playoffs. And acquiring a guy like Adam Henrique, like, to do what? To ultimately, like, shore up your fourth line? Again, I don't want to give up assets and a lot of assets to shore up the fourth line. I trust the guys down there. I think, like, when the team is suited and booted and maybe bring in Phil Kessel and there's a scenario where Pius Suter and Sam Lafferty have a ton of chemistry on the fourth line. I see it. I feel it, okay? And maybe Podkolzin too.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing too. Like, we'll talk about this more later in the week. Like, we've shown a lot of love for Niels Höglander and how much of an X factor he's become. Is there a lane here for Podkolzin not to be a trade piece, but to be a piece, big picture this season for the Vancouver Canucks? Because yesterday against an AHL team, while playing in the NHL, he looked good. He looked impressive. He looked big. He looked like he belonged. He looked confident. And I'm really curious to see what he does against the big boys this week, because there's like a 40% chance that, again, he's an X factor for this season's version of your Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think I do want to talk a bit more about both Pettersson and Höglander on tomorrow's episode. Let's wrap up this episode with some of the rest of the names on the list. Again, hit us up with your comments. Who do you want to see the Canucks acquire before the deadline on March 8th? If anybody, or are you Team Kyle? Keep it as is.
Yeah.
Don't trade for anybody. More on that. More on our trade targets on the other side. But first, let's shout out Gametime. All right. You know me. And if you don't know me, I'm cheap, okay? And I'm also a big last-minute deals guy. And I've found that the best place for killer deals at the last minute is Gametime. Gametime, they got my back, and they got your back too, okay? I get these emails from Nicole. I don't know if she emails anybody else, but she's emailing me, and she's always teasing me with concerts and events this week in my area. Not only are those weekly emails a tease, but Gametime also offers me and you flash deals on last-minute tickets. You can get flash deals on last-minute tickets for the Canucks, and if you ain't into the Canucks or you don't want to pay that high price, you can get flash deals on last-minute tickets for things like football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Now, I have no choice but to get off my disgustingly hairy rear end and check out a local show on a Friday night. So make sure you snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Make sure you use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Man, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight in Vancouver, all my real fans.
Okay. We back here on Locked On Canucks. My name is Kyle Bowen. That right there is Trevor Beggs. I got to give you another reminder that, again, we're giving away 2 Canucks tickets March 25th against the LA Kings, okay? All you got to do is subscribe to the channel and also subscribe to the Discord. The Discord, a place for discourse and chemistry, okay? Because the live show, it's going to happen eventually. And when the live show happens and we sell $5 drinks and $1.25 hot dogs, I want us in the parking lot too having a good time, if you know what I'm saying, okay? I want that chemistry to be all the way up there, and we can practice that chemistry in the Discord. Hey, speaking of chemistry, look at this, man. G. Ellis, one of the greatest fans on the program. Can we give this guy a round of applause? Okay, he says keep the team as it is. Straight up. And then Mr. Whale with this one. This is a big one, okay? We need a better winger for Pettersson badly. I think they traded for that guy already, man. I think there's a scenario here where Joshua gets back and, again, they have a meeting with Elias Lindholm, and that's Rutherford, and he just tells him, bro, like, yo, you got to pick it up, and we're giving you a long leash with Pettersson, and just go be that winger. Straight up. We need, is that the quote-unquote trade deadline acquisition that happens this week, and that's the resurgence of Elias Lindholm actually being an X-Factor player? Because the last time I checked, we gave up assets like he was one of those guys. Because you know what it's telling me right now? If he's like an 81 overall type of guy the rest of the way, bro, we effed up. We could have saved those assets and actually went after Jake Guentzel properly and not uber aggressively / mortgaging, a 2025 first round pick. Like Elias Lindholm needs to step up and he needs to do so ASAP.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We talked about it last week. Shout out to us. Elias Lindholm needs to be better for your Vancouver Canucks, and we dropped that episode, and he, wasn't that much better over the past couple of games. So they did not get the Locked On podcast bump right there. We'll see if any of these guys get the Locked On podcast bump in the sense that they become Canucks over the next week.
Go through
Kyle,
it.
Let me just list off some names and let me know how you feel. Some of the big ones left on my list, salary-wise, were Frank Vatrano. All-star Frank Vatrano played well with Pettersson at the All-Star game. Kyle's shaking his head no.
Nope.
Jason Zucker, I think the cap is too big, but, Rutherford's obviously a fan of him. If he comes at a low acquisition cost and is going to retain some salary, that could be an interesting one.
Nope.
On defense, maybe it's the veteran route. Maybe it's a guy like John Merrill, Minnesota, Eric Johnson in Buffalo, or a younger guy like Michael Kesselring in Arizona. Those are some guys on my list as well. And last but not least, in terms of, just short up that bottom six, I have guys like, Brandon Duhaime, who have been rumored to go to the Canucks as well on my list. So
okay.
We'll see if any of those happen. But those are some of the guys that I would be keeping my eye on over this next week as well.
And I'm just going to go back to what I said about Liam O'Brien, okay? And that's because Frosty Balls with one of the comments of the year, okay? I'll give to this guy a round of applause. This guy's Team Kyle, okay? He's Team Kyle, and he just wants the team to get a goon, okay? To get a tough guy. And I'm a fan of Liam O'Brien, man. Like I said, man, game 2 of the playoffs, round 2, the Canucks lose game 1, right? They need a spark. This guy has 3 hits. 3 hits in the first shift of his game, okay? 4 minutes into the game, he has 3 hits. The crowd goes nuts. The Canucks win, and they win the second round because of a shift like that. It's the little things, man. I think Liam O'Brien, he has a bit of X factor in him because he's willing to do things a lot of players aren't willing to do. That's a guy I want, okay? For real. I also want Trevor Beggs to get better internet connection. That's what people are. People are chirping your internet, man. Hey, speaking of chirps, man, I saw one of the worst chirps on here, man. Where is it? Is it Aaron Gray? Aaron Gray, man. I thought you were my homie, man. This guy said he's willing to trade Archie Baines, man, if he's available, man. I would trade high on Archie Baines. Bro, you're from Surrey. I know some people in Surrey. You better watch your mouth, man. For real.
Oh, man.
Do you think, last question, do you think, like, I don't know, I said it last week too, right? Like, I said it before he played like 4 more games or 3 more games. I think they're doing the same thing with Podkolzin. Bro, they're trying to shop these guys. They're trying to raise their value. Because the Canucks, if they don't want to trade Lekaramaki, if they don't want to trade Tom Willander, they don't want to trade Niels Höglander, maybe they were hoping that Archie Baines through 5 games or through 8 games before the deadline would have like 2 goals, 4 assists or something. I think they're going to do the same thing with Podkolzin here. Not as long as a runway prior to the deadline for him, but I think he's going to get a lot of time against the Kings, a lot of time against the Knights, trying to raise that value. Am I talking out of my ass here? Because I think I'm not.
No, I think it's a win-win situation, right? I think Podkolzin and Baines, more so Baines, but those guys, earned a look at the NHL level for how they played in the AHL this season. And again, a win-win, right? You get them to the big clubs, see if they can show anything. If they don't, whatever, send them back to the AHL. And if they show something, like you said, Kyle, maybe they're increasing their trade value. Look, it's lots of stuff going on. I think as you watch other NHL teams play, you're starting to see some other names you didn't recognize playing games. I felt that way over the past little bit as well. It's that time of year where teams either are out of the race and they want to see what other guys can do, or teams are in the race and maybe they're showcasing some of their prospects for a potential trade. So we'll see. We'll see if that's the case for Podkolzin or Baines. I think between the two, it's definitely Podkolzin, who in my mind is more likely to be traded. Top 10 pick. I think he's got the resume more so than Baines does. I could see Podkolzin being included in a trade, although I don't know if it's overly likely.
And I think Podkolzin, I think it's more likely for the Canucks to go down this route. And it's a little scary because Podkolzin was a former first-round pick, but I could definitely see the Canucks go to New Jersey and be like, yo, we want Tyler Toffoli. Podkolzin in a third-round pick. Does that get it done? Podkolzin, you know what I'm saying? Could it be something like that? That's what I see. Anyways, Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs. We're going to be talking a lot about this ish all week because it's the most hectic time of the year. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to be a part of the conversation. And again, for the third time, Discord link in the bio below. join it and enter for a chance to win 2 tickets to the Kings game on March the 25th. Man, oh man, I'm loving the discourse in the Discord and just learning how to use it. Okay, at 30 and a half years old, I didn't think I'd ever have a Discord because it's another thing for me to do. I'm already bald and do I have time for it? Blah, blah, blah. But I'm loving it. It's kicking it back to the Canuck forum type of days. Subscribe in the link in the bio. And Begsy, do us all a favor and sign us out.
All right. Coming up this week, we do want to touch on Höglander and Podkols. And I also want to touch on something we didn't really bring back today, which was the Canucks cap situation. We might take a deep dive at other specific trade targets like Tyler Toffoli, maybe, for instance. And I'm also scrolling through and seeing some other names too on the deep dive list who I think could be of interest to the Vancouver Canucks. If you're a real hockey nerd, you can stick around for that. Whether you're a hockey nerd, a first-time listener, an occasional listener, a everyday listener, a new subscriber, or you join us here on the live feed, we appreciate each and every one of you. We hope you stick around for each and every episode of Locked On Canucks because we're here, your team, every day, 5 days a week at least. Kyle's making it more like 9 days a week. We're here. Hard-working guy. We'll keep bringing you the goods here on Locked On Canucks. But for now, I'm Trevor Begg. That guy's Kyle Bowen. Let's hope the Canucks bring the goods as well. And hey, you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Enjoy the sun. Take care of your neighbors. Peace.
Man, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight in Vancouver, all my real fans.